All right, well, why don't I go ahead and call this meeting to order then. Thanks for bearing with getting some of the technical issues sorted out. So we are beginning this special meeting of the Board of Water Resources. It is 4:07 p.m. We are conducting this meeting virtually with some staff in Vernal. But the board is logging in virtually. We've noticed this meeting, and so it's just great to get this going. I am Juliet Tennert. I chair the Board of Water Resources this year and represent Salt Lake and Tooele County. Tooele counties, just to keep things moving efficiently, given that we're virtual. I'll go ahead and introduce my colleagues who are also on the line. We have Charles Holmgren, who represents Bear River District. We have Randy Crozier, who represents the Green River District. Dana Van Horn, representing the Upper Colorado River District. It's kind of like going through my list on the side of the screen here. Michael Davis, representing the Provo River District. Blaine Ibsen, representing the Sevier River District. And do we have Kyle Stevens? Kyle, are you with us?
I'm here.
Oh, excellent. There you are. Excellent. Kyle Stevens is also with us, representing the Weber River District. And I will note that Spencer Jones, who represents the Lower Colorado River District, is excused. He was unfortunately unable to make this meeting. Why don't we turn the time over to
We lost your audio, Madam Chair. Oh, you're back.
When did you lose me?
You got through all the introductions, and then you said we're going to turn it over, and then it froze.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, Director Hassenjäger, can I turn it over to you to identify who else was present from the division and anyone else that we need to note in attendance for purposes of the meeting? Thank you.
Yes, I'll read through the virtual attendees, and then maybe those in the room can introduce themselves. I know Shalane DiBernardi is staffing it, our assistant director. Also, we have Emily Lewis online, Eric Dixon, Jared Manning, Jesse Impey, Josh Cowden, Justin Whittaker, Lily Bosworth, Sarah Knoll, Shannon Clow, Todd Stonley. We have someone from the Rivers Council. I'm not sure who is representing them, if they want to speak up.
Matt Berry, Policy Specialist with the Rivers Council.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for joining us today. And I think that is all that is online. Maybe in the room, would you mind introducing yourselves for us, please?
Sure. I'll start. Ryan Goodrich, Ashley Valley Water and Sewer Improvement District. Keith Despain, Vernal City.
Quinn Benyon, Vernal City Manager.
Dean Baker, board member, Ashley Valley Water Sewer Improvement District.
Andrew Dutson, State Engineer's Office.
Ivan Merrill, Vernal City. Dan Matthews with Wet Expert Consultants for Vernal and Ashley Valley.
Great, and I know Paul Gedge is helping us with the AV, and Carmen, I heard her voice is probably helping us from Salt Lake. Thank you for their participation as well.
Excellent, thank you. Well, we appreciate everyone in attendance and also the support of Paul and Carmen. Two items on the agenda. We have, I'm going to pause my video because clearly my network is unstable. The two items that we have on our agenda are a Lake Powell pipe.
Juliet, we lost your audio again. Shalane, should we call Juliet into the meeting, or Paul?
Sure, we can do that. Let me, I think we're good to go ahead and have Eric start presenting. So maybe I'll get that up and going, and then I'll call her in on the phone as well.
Thanks, Shalane. I'm going to, yeah, I'll call on the phone. Go ahead and start with that first agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm Chair, member of the board. It's great to be here. I should be pretty quick. It's I'll kind of explain why we're on this meeting, because we're originally intended to be on this meeting. I'm going to give a little update on the LPP project and we've got some contract amendment requests. So kind of a little bit of background update. There's that first item that's kind of along the description. But in a nutshell,
Eric, excuse me. We're getting feedback from your mic somehow.
Oh, I bet it's the sound here being on.
Did you turn that off?
Mine is.
Yeah, I've only got one speaker here, so I don't know. If I turn it off, if you don't hear me talking. Is that better, Carmen? Still doing it.
We're still getting feedback.
I didn't have any feedback on mine. I could hear him fine.
Yeah. Me as well.
Okay, so how about in the meeting?
I saw a thumbs up. Does that mean no feedback in the conference room?
Okay, I'd say go ahead and go.
All right. Back to the first item in a nutshell is basically describing the Bureau of Reclamation and the basin states. Their focus is on islands related to the Colorado River. There's some EIS descriptions there. So I'll let you read that. But basically just highlighting that's where their focus is right now. And as part of that, with their focus being on that, the area down in St. George area, the Washington County area, their focus has kind of had the pivot. So right now they're focusing on all their focus is on water conservation and reuse. They've put together a new 20-year plan, which highlights that they're optimizing those resources as much as they possibly can. And with that, Bureau of Reclamation has minimized the work that they're doing on the LPP supplemental DEIS. But we'll get in a little bit and how that contract extended. And then as from ethnographic study update, the Kaibab tribe is continuing to do a little bit of studies on some of the cultural sites and alternate alignments that are served. They're still continuing those studies. And as far as contracts, the reason we need to get onto this meeting is the contract with the Board of Reclamation. Actually, things were slow enough. We kind of lost track of things, and their contracts are on a fiscal year, which ends up in September. So we requested to be added to this meeting. So one of the requests is that we extend their task order, and with how things have been, we're only requesting time extension for 1 year on that. No additional money is needed. And then it's the same with the Stantec contract. Just need time extension on that one. We're looking at how much has been spent and a little effort being on it. We're looking to extend that one for 2 years. But no additional funds requested for that. There is the Bureau of Land Management Recovery Agreement. Nothing's needed on that, or work we need to make any changes to that. And the Kaibab Band of Indians. That's when I mentioned I'm working on ethnographic study updates. You might looking at. But nothing that needed by the board. Updates those minimal works and updates and studies are still going. So At the end of all that, like I said, the only thing really needed is to cover on recommendations. Staff recommends the board amend the contract with the Bureau of Reclamation for one additional year until September 30th, 2024 to continue to work on the task order. No additional funds will be provided for this amendment. And staff recommends the board amend the contract for two additional years until December 31st, 2025 to continue the work approved in 2020, and no additional funds will be provided for this amendment. That's recommendations from staff. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. And we appreciate that briefing, and then we also appreciate having this memo sent to us ahead of time. And it came up a little quickly. So thank you for getting this information to us. Are there does the board have any questions on this item?
This is Blaine. I had a question for Eric. Are your recommendations would that require two separate motions when the time comes if the board decides to go that route?
Yes, because they're separate contracts. I think they need to be separate motions.
Okay.
Unless anybody has more experience on motions, knows if they can be done in one.
Probably a good idea. Advising the other Chilean too. Yes. Get an abundance of caution. We would be looking for two motions.
You would be best to do two motions.
Okay. Before I call for a motion, I work because we're handling this a little bit differently given special meeting. I'm unsure if any public comment came in electronically on this. Perhaps someone from the division can tell us if any public comment came in electronically.
I don't believe that we had any. Can you verify that?
And there's working validation on that. Nothing electronically. I see validation in the chat. Nothing came in electronically. I should ask if there's anyone in attendance that would like to make comment. All right. Thank you. So with that, are there any questions of the board? So I would be looking for a motion on amending the contract with the Bureau of Reclamation first, if one of my colleagues would like to put that forward.
Madam Chair, this is Mike Davis. I make a motion that the board amend the contract with the Bureau of Reclamation for one additional year until September 30th, 2024 to continue the work in the task order number. No additional funds will be provided for this amendment.
All right, thank you. All right, we have the motion by Board Member Davis, seconded by Board Member Crozier. Do we have any discussion on that motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Oh, we might have to do a roll call vote. I apologize.
Yeah, I was calling for that. I was just thinking that. So I don't know who Kevin, can you help us with that, or can Shannon help with that?
I'm happy to help.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Great. Blaine Ibsen.
I vote in favor of the motion.
Charles Holmgren.
Madam Chair, I vote aye for the motion.
Dana Van Horn.
Aye.
Juliet Tennard. Well, with her being the chair, normally don't take your vote. Kyle.
Aye.
Mike Davis.
Aye.
Randy Crozier.
Aye.
And I think I got everyone. Did I miss anyone?
Dana? You get Dana?
Yeah.
Good, she got me.
So.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and rule that motion passes. Thank you. And also thank you for bearing with us on some of these technical issues. So I would be looking then for that second motion on the contract with Stantec.
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to make that motion. I move that the board amend the contract with Stantec for 2 additional years until December 31st, 2025 to continue the work approved in 2020. No additional funds will be provided for this amendment.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it. It's Kyle.
All right, that's seconded by, I believe, Board Member Stevens. Any discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. And Director Helsendinger, if you can help us with that again, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Blaine Ibsen.
Aye.
Charles Holmgren.
I vote aye.
Dana Van Horn.
Aye.
Kyle Stevens.
Aye.
Mike Davis. Mike, you're on mute.
Aye, sorry.
Awesome, thank you. And then Randy Crozier.
Aye.
I think I got everyone.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll go ahead and rule that motion has passed. Thank you very much. So that completes the action portion of our agenda. So we'll go ahead and move on now to the second part of our agenda, which was the initial reason behind the calling of the special meeting. So a statutory water bank application has been filed by the First Water Bank of Utah with the Utah Board of Water Resources. And so this special meeting begins the 30-day public comment period on the application. We do have a representation there at the Ashley Valley Water and Sewer Improvement District in Vernal, Utah. And we've noticed this so that stakeholders and citizens can participate virtually and in person in sharing public comment. I'm not sure, I'll probably lean on Shalane to help us through this, but I'll just remind my colleagues that, you know, we will have this 30 days for comment to come in, and we can always follow up with questions during that time. I think that time will potentially allow for some questions if we need to ask them, but I would just like to keep this as focused on just hearing the comment as possible. And like I said, then we can follow up with questions as appropriate in the next 30 days. But if there are several things that need to be asked at this point, I think that we'll be able to manage that. My understanding is that we will have a presentation, then we can go to comment. I will just turn the time over to Shalane to get us started.
Thanks, Juliet. Yes, we've asked the bank themselves to present to you in information. And so I'm going to turn the time over to Ryan, and he's got some people that are going to help from some electronically, some here, to give you the information that we hope you need. And yeah, as stated, there will be no action taken on the bank. We'll bring this back to you at the October 5th meeting, the staff recommendation at that time.
Thank you.
Yep, you can do however you like.
Well, if I stand up, I can leave the camera. So I will say seated. Ryan Goodrich again, Ashley Valley Water and Sewer District Manager. I've actually asked, and I don't want to pawn this off again, but I'm asked Emily if she would take just a minute to talk about the statutory legislation and the wording, because I want to follow that up with why Ashley Valley and Vernal City have partnered. So Emily, if you wouldn't mind taking just a minute and talking about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm really excited to be here, you guys, because I think this is a really cool day with the culmination of a lot of really fun activities from a bunch of different parties here to bring us together And so before talking about the specific application before the board today, I did just kind of want to remind everybody about kind of like where we are in this process. And so we had last before you in your last board meeting, our statutory water bank application forms. And so that was our request of you as the board to kind of say, you know, yes, this is kind of like what we think is going to be the appropriate form for getting the information needed from the applicant. And that form, as we discussed last meeting, is designed on and cues off the exact statutory language that's required under section 7331.202. And that's verbatim, that's what the statutory water bank application says. And so in working with Ashley Valley and its partners in the first water bank of Utah, we worked with them to figure out a form that would work to collect the large amount of information that the statute requires. And so it was submitted to you as the form that you approved last month and our last meeting, and then also an addendum that goes by checkbox by checkbox by checkbox, so that if there was ever, you know, more explanation needed on a specific piece of statutory criteria, the applicant has provided that to you. And this is for the board, but also for the members of the public who want to better understand this application. You know, the purpose is to get good information out there as much as possible. And so the way the statute is structured and written is that if an applicant submits a statutory water bank application that is deemed complete by the Board of Water Resources, in this case delegated to the division, then you know, the statute requires a 30-day public meeting, as the chair indicated, and then at the next board meeting, after taking time to take any public comment into account, the board would approve the application if it's deemed complete and they have all their questions answered. But so basically that was kind of where we are in the process. Today, Ashley Valley and his partners have worked really hard to put the first application together for you. And so what I think we're going to do over the next, you know, half hour or so, however long it takes, is have the applicant itself give you guys kind of a demonstration of kind of the criteria of describing how they see this application working in practice, kind of what their intentions are, to answer any questions of the board. And then we also have a demonstration of some of the technology that the applicant intends to use. But this being the first time an application like this has come before the board, you know, we thought it'd be really great to have a special meeting so that we could have extra time to talk about it. We really wanted local participants to be able to come, since this is, you know, really intended to be a local process. And so hopefully today this can act as a good forum for kind of getting questions asked or clarifications needed.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. I appreciate that. This has been a very exciting process for us. Ashley Valley and Vernal City partnered, a year and a half ago, somewhere in there. When the legislation first came out about water banks, we sat down, the two entities, and we talked about how this was a potential solution for making the water use in our valley the most efficient way, you know, or used efficiently in our area. And so we started sitting down and having talks about how we could accomplish this. Shortly thereafter, we hired and partnered with technology firm WetX as consultants to help us through the application process and to really develop some digital tools in order to make these type transactions more efficient. One thing that we talked about at length as we got together, as Vernal sat down with Ashley Valley, we talked about the fact that we didn't want any of this to be mandatory. This is a 100% voluntary process, and we have tried to make that message known to the public that, you know, there's lots of fear and scare when you start talking about water uses and, you know, irrigation companies and culinary water. The idea behind this is to make efficient use of water as the legislation allows, and then make it voluntary. So we have worked for a long time trying to get that together, and Jesse Empey has some things that he would like to show us. I wanted to start, if we could let him share his screen by chance, or maybe Paul can. Okay, so perfect. The first thing I really wanted to talk about is to why our area, it makes sense. If you see the map that's on the screen and you can kind of see the drainage, there's really two drainages in our area, the Ashley drainage and the Brush Creek drainage. Over the years, various entities in our valley have spent millions of dollars to install pipelines for both culinary, raw water sources, irrigation canals, ditches, and you can see those efforts. So all of the black lines that you see on the map represent irrigation lines or canals that have either been piped or mostly piped. And you can see there's several spots where those canals are connected together. So the ability of transferring water from, one canal company to another canal company through the processes that are already there. What you don't see on there is also all of the, hundreds and hundreds of miles of culinary water lines that are also running throughout the valley that have the same sources in the same drainages. So as we sat down and we started talking about why our area would be beneficial to have a water bank, it was because most of the infrastructure physically is already in place. There's still lots to do with obviously change applications and agreements that need to be put in place. But if you're not spending, millions of dollars of trying to put in a pipeline so that you can have two shareholders share water or use water, in our opinion, you've solved half the battle. And so we sat down and we started talking. We have had many conversations with the canal companies. We've had conversations with the regional water engineer in theory of how to make all of these work, and felt it was prudent to put an application in for the water bank. Simultaneously with that, once again, we hired WetX as a consultant to start the process of how we would actually make those transactions take place, and how we would develop a market so that you could have shareholders that could lease water or buy water or have a market. And we have spent hours and hours talking about the process, the forms. How would we ensure that water is delivered? How do we ensure that water is available to be put into a bank, for example, or into a lease pool, or in the market in general? And while all of those are not developed, in the technical side of the world, we're working towards that. So Jesse, if you wouldn't mind taking just a minute and talking about kind of the market, what we envision and how we would make that work. I'll turn the time to you for just a minute.
All right, thank you. It's great to be here, and really happy to partner with Ashley Valley and Vernal City to help bring to pass the First Water Bank of Utah. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at WetX, and excited to show you what we are building for the First Water Bank of Utah. So I'll go ahead and share my screen again. So we're providing the banking software that will be utilized to manage and track the water at the First Water Bank of Utah. And I'll go ahead and just sign in here to a demo account to our software. And the first thing you see is a landing page. This is our dashboard that provides information that's pertinent to the First Water Bank of Utah. Something that Ryan really wanted to be able to see. Different elevations of lakes and reservoirs, as well as flow information for Ashley Creek. We want to be able to provide data that's very pertinent to the water situation in the water bank service area. So this is customizable by our customers. They can provide the data that they want on their dashboard. We've also developed what we call the WetX Vault, and this is a document repository for any documents that are necessary for the running of the First Water Bank of Utah, including meeting minutes, any data or documents pertaining to the water itself that is deposited into the water bank. We want to be able to keep track of all of that documentation digitally here. It allows you to organize it into different cabinets, provide different labels for those documents, and be able to share those documents externally if that's something that you need to do. What we're really excited about, though, is the process of getting water deposited into the water bank and using our software to do that. And when the owner of that water is interested in leasing or selling that water, being able to provide a marketplace that allows them to list the water for customers to be able to log into the bank and see what is available if they are looking to lease or purchase water, and be able to do that in a digital way that hasn't been done before. So this is just an example of what that might look like. And have all the information about the water. Users can come in and make an offer if they want to purchase or lease some of the water. You can also see all the properties for the water, the recent activities that have occurred in the water bank pertaining to that water, and then the price history as well. So again, really excited to be working with First Water Bank of Utah to provide the software that will help them to run their water bank.
Okay.
Send it back over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Jesse. I appreciate that. Dan, I'll put you on the spot for just a second to talk about how we're going to ensure that somebody submits an application and we actually get their water.
Okay. So my name is Dan Matthews. I also work with WEDX. I'm a water attorney and consultant. And so we've been involved in the documentation and the formation of the water bank and helping them get that ready to go. So a couple of things that are very important, obviously, are one, that the state engineer and the appropriate governmental entities approve any transaction before it takes place. The way this would work is that a person that owns water rights would apply to be a member of the water bank. So they would fill out an application form that would have all their information, their contact information, the location of their water right. The application doesn't necessarily equate to the deposit form. So we want to first have them be members like a credit union. They would be members of the water bank. The first two members would be Vernal City and Ashley Valley. They're both public water suppliers and are very interested in doing some transactions between the two of them to maximize efficiencies in the public water supply. But as people wanted to join, again, all voluntary, they would fill out an application. That would be something that's transparent, that everybody can see who's applying. And once they're a member of the bank, then they could also apply to deposit water into the bank to be available for lease. And the way they would do that is to give all the data that the state engineer office needs to make sure that it's within the service area, that it can be transferred. A lot of those transfers, like Ryan has already mentioned, already take place up and down those canals and back and forth within that service area. It's all designed to be serviced out of the Ashley Creek drainage, and you saw that on the map. So we think there should not be a whole lot of hiccups in getting these applications approved and the change applications to make sure that it meets all the requirements of the state engineer. Once a water right is deposited and the change application is approved, then it would go up on the marketplace. And the theory behind the marketplace is sort of like a KSL.com, where you could go up there, see what's available by dropping a pin, for example, on a map saying, this is my 40-acre field. What water rights are available for lease that have been approved by the state engineer that I could maybe pick up for a one month period or a 1 year period or whatever I'm interested in leasing for. Once we get a little bit of data and a little bit of some of these water rights deposited, then the theory is that that would allow them to say, hey, I can choose between 3 different water rights that are available for lease, or 5, or whatever it is. That would also let the lessors, the people leasing the water, set the price. The bank does not control the price. And so it's a market that is available, but it's all regulated by the bank, who's regulated by the state engineer and the appropriate state entities to make sure that no water right holders are injured, their water rights not affected adversely, and everything's on the up and up. The theory is that at some point, down the road, once we get a little critical mass, that people will be able to go on just like at ksl.com and say, I need water in this area. I need it for August and September to finish my 4th crop or whatever it is. And oh, look, here's 2 that are available. The idea is that we replace the over the fence handshake deals that take place now, because frankly, if you don't know somebody with water, it's just not available, and it might not be the most efficient way to use water. This will, we think, increase efficiencies. And again, all approved through the state engineer's office before it's even listed. Then someone that wants to lease water would also apply to the bank. So they would be a member as well, like a credit union again. And then they would submit an offer. You saw that on the software. They would submit an offer. That transaction would have to be approved by the bank. And so all those things would be then very transparent. We could see exactly when the water was leased, how long the lease period was for. We could transmit to the water master and to the state engineer so they know exactly where that water is supposed to go for what period of time. They would also have a say in that. If they say, gee, that's just not physically possible, or it's really difficult in this period of time, we would put those restrictions on the water right before it could be leased. So the idea is that everybody approves it before it happens, but once we get some critical mass, that should be something that a potential lessee should be able to do on their smartphone. They should be able to say, hey, I want to try to finish off my 4th crop. I know 3 people upstream here that aren't going to have a 4th crop, and they put their water up for lease. I can pick and choose and then let the powers that be deliver it to the lower field. So that help? Okay, that was perfect.
Okay, I appreciate those explanations. I really don't have anything more unless the board has questions for us. There's obviously a lot of information in the application that we're trying to address, and we're more than happy to answer questions if you've got any at this point.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that briefing and that information. It was interesting to see the interface. So thank you for sharing that with us. It kind of starts to put this all into like what it would look like in practice. So I just appreciate that. Acknowledging, that we want to make sure that we give enough time for any public comment in this venue. I would like to keep questions limited. However, I do want to allow, for my colleagues to ask me questions while we have you. If you have any questions that need to be answered at this point, I'll go ahead and turn that time over to my colleagues. So are there any questions?
Madam Chair, this is Blaine.
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Okay, with my background in water rights, I'm curious how the change application, that doesn't happen overnight. If you mentioned if somebody wants a 4th crop hay and they just go and have it done. Obviously, if permanent change applications would take quite a while to get approved as they go through the things. Temporary change applications are only good for a period of 1 year. Is your intent to have each year, each of the entities that want to do this have a temporary change approved or a permanent change approved prior to an irrigation season, that type of thing? Because we all know that with the state engineer's office, whether it be a temporary change application or a permanent change application, it takes time.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I wonder if we should go to Emily to answer that kind of broadly, and then we can go to the applicant for their answer as well. Does that work okay?
Yeah, and
Go ahead. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and I think it's really good to the practical brass tacks. So under the statute, one of the intents and purposes of the statute for the Water Banking Act was to address the question that Board Member Ibsen just raised. is how do we facilitate faster transfers of water? Because that's been noted as a barrier to market transactions for several years now. Through no fault of the state engineer's office, I think we're asking them to do very complicated things and asking complicated questions. So that's not being critical, but it does take a while. But the intent of the Water Banking Act was to basically have kind of a one-time change application to look at the various ways that the water could be used in the bank service area. And then once that application was approved, then it would be up to bank procedures to make sure they complied with the conditions of the approval of the state engineer's order on the change application. Now, that being said, that's a second stage of marketing that we have yet to kind of unwrap that layer of the onion. And as we found in our prior experience with the contract water bank and price, these are kind of complicated questions that we're still going to have to wade our way through. But in terms of the application itself as the water bank application, the intention and intent of the statute was to have kind of a one-time change application at the front end and then have the water be delivered pursuant to company policies and the conditions of the state engineer order.
Yeah, and if I could speak to that just a little bit. So the good news about the Ashley Valley Vernal City Water Bank is that there's essentially one source of water. Okay, and Ashley Creek is the source for all that you saw on the map. Steinecker, the reservoir in Red Fleet comes over. Those are contract rights. So there's a limited amount of sources. The other good news is this water has been moved back and forth generally within that service area for a long period of time. So we actually think that this is a great test case to try out the statute with water rights that we think the state engineer will be very comfortable with. But again, the goal would be, this is voluntary. So we haven't approached any of the irrigation companies and said, hey, how would you like to deposit all your water? We're not going to do that because we don't want to alarm them and make them nervous. The idea would be that the two public water suppliers pick and choose either contract water rights from Red Fleet or some of the water rights. They both share the same source. Their intakes are very close to each other, and then they run a few of these test cases, and we might even have to hand curate. We might have to do those by hand while we're working on the software, but that we get that approved by the state engineer over the winter, for example, so that next summer that has already been approved. So if Vernal wants to deposit 100 acre feet of contract water, the change app's already there, and that transaction could take place quickly. When we hope that we're so successful that the irrigators want to participate, and that they come in then and say, hey, from this canal company, we would like to have the ability to deposit X amount. Let's run a change app on that. But again, it's water. This won't be new to the state engineer's office because they're very familiar with this water, all from the same source, just different canals. And so we don't want to force anybody, obviously. So the idea would be we'll run some that we've already got both sides agreeing, get a state engineer's approval for next summer. But if others want to come, that's how we'd file it. File the approval so that then within that, the bounds of that approval, we could move water back and forth.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question, actually a couple questions.
Please. Yeah, please do. Go for it. Thank you.
So throughout the presentation, we've talked of water rights. I assume that applies to shares and irrigation companies as well, or does it not?
No, it does.
Okay. My next question is, has Ashley Creek been adjudicated by the state engineer's office? And if not, would that have any impact on the water bank or how that may be run, depending on how the outcome of the adjudication comes?
Looking at Andrew from the state engineer's office stands with that. He's right by me, so come on in. 1 second. There he is.
So part of Ashley Creek is adjudicated. There's one part for Central Canal that is not finished yet, but I don't know that that will affect it. It depends on the water right? It's a case by case thing. It would just depend on which application they filed and which water right or water rights it was filed on. And that's how we would look at it in every situation.
And the goal here is to do some easy ones first. I mean, nothing's easy with any of this, but the ones that the state engineer is very comfortable with already. again, not try to force irrigation companies with their shares into it, but make it available to them. And then, yeah, we would do ones that we kind of already know that's happening, so we think it will work. There are some tricky ones always in every system that would take some, some forethought and get them ready for the following year or whatever. So, and Emily,
okay.
I think Emily had a question too, I think.
Yeah, and I just wanted to just point you guys to one point of the statute as well, because I think the question about irrigation company shares is really relevant, because a lot of the water in Utah is held in shares, and I think shareholders and companies themselves are kind of trying to figure out what this means for them. And so the statute is, the change application element of the statute that was really intended to piggyback on existing law. So a change application would still have to be filed by the company, and if a shareholder wanted to file a change application, a shareholder change application, they'd still have to follow the regular rules of getting company consent and company approval. And so this water banking statute is really intended to like weave in and kind of knit together with our existing statutes on change applications.
Right. So basically, it's not just anybody who owns shares, but you need to get the irrigation companies on board as well for the shareholders to participate. Okay. My last question is the water bank, and I know this isn't a proper term, but it somewhat acts like a broker between a lot of entities for a lot of reasons. Are there any liabilities? Does the water bank have to carry any liability insurance? Are we expected them to do so?
Yeah,
for a myriad of reasons, canal leakage, water breaks, anything.
Yeah, good question. The model is, again, I hate to keep saying this, but kind of a KSL.com. So if I want to sell my car on KSL.com, and we'll build into the application that we ask them to verify their water rights, and we ask them to sign an affidavit saying they own the water right, that they have the right to place it in. So we're trying to hedge our bets as best we can by making it the responsibility of the depositor to verify that they own it, and then the lessee that he or she's going to use it in a spot they say they're going to do. Okay, we become then sort of the platform for that to occur. There will be some fees associated with the transactions, but we're really not saying we're taking some kind of ownership interest and then guaranteeing the water. So if there's going to be a complaint process, if, hey, my water didn't come, I paid for it, those sorts of things, we won't transmit any fees until the water's actually delivered. So we're trying to build all those things in. The question of insurance we'll really have to look at, but the theory is that we become an independent platform. We're not setting the price. We're not guaranteeing the deposit. It's kind of like, you put your car in KSL, we assume it's a Honda if you said it's a Honda, right?
Thank you.
It's going to take a little bit of work to work out some of those bugs. But the point is, and the beauty and the brilliant idea behind the water bank is to make that transaction more seamless and transparent. Because right now, if I wanted to lease water in Ashley Valley, I don't live here, I would have to know somebody that knows somebody. And so there's a real bottleneck of information there, and it makes the efficient use of water pretty difficult on occasion. The idea is that we make this more transparent so it becomes a marketplace so that those things can happen quickly. That will take some years to mature as we get approvals through, change app approvals. We get more buy-in by more people that voluntarily want to participate. That will mature. But the idea is that at some point in the future, that becomes a very simple transaction, not a complicated one that takes so long that you already missed your fourth cutting anyway, so it doesn't matter, sort of thing.
Thank you. Shalane, can you give us an idea of, do you have a sign-in for public comment, or can you give us an idea of, how many folks are there in Vernal who would like to speak? I'm just trying to kind of, navigate with timing.
There
are we should do further questions.
Yeah, Juliet, there are no members of the public here. Everyone in the room is, besides Chantal, are part of the bank. So
okay. All right, and I'll end it to double.
Sorry.
I'm just along for the ride. Not partisan.
So, Madam Chair, I've got one question I'd like to ask. This is Randy.
Yeah, please do.
So maybe this one goes to Andrew, and maybe he wants to address it and maybe he doesn't. You know, there's a limit of so many acre feet to the acre. I assume this will all be tracked so somebody can't actually be purchasing and putting more water on a piece of ground than is legally authorized.
Yeah, that'll be tracked. That'll have to be tracked, Randy.
So that's what my assumption would be, but I just wanted to hear your assurance, Andrew. So thank you and appreciate you being in the meeting.
Yeah, you're welcome, Randy.
Candace has dropped a note into the chat that's noting that if there's anyone participating online that would like to make public comment, if they could just make their desire known. And while we're waiting on that, I'll get questions coming from the board. And since we do have time, are there any further questions from the board that the group of experts that's convened might be able to answer? Shalane or Candace, can you remind us what the public comment, or even Emily, I don't know if it's best you didn't speak on this, kind of what the parameters around the public comment period look like, how we expect to be. I mean, we have this meeting, but I know this opens up a 30-day period. And can you just talk us through those parameters so we're aware of them?
We put on the website that the public comment period will go basically until the next board meeting. So we will close public comment for this item on October 5th to the next board meeting.
And so those who wish to make further comment can just submit that comment through electronically.
Yep.
Using our website.
Yep, the link for the form is always on our website. Sometimes it's accepting responses, sometimes it's not. It will now be left open for the next 30 days.
Great. Okay. All right. Given that this is the first one, we just didn't know what to expect for this meeting. So, I mean, for me, I just wanted to make the point that it's been very educational, and I've learned a lot and continue to look forward to learning more as we move through this process. Board members, any further questions? And of course, we know that the team is always there to help us as we have been during this comment period, and then as we get to the point where we're actually reviewing the application in our next board meeting. I think that I'm going to get to the point where I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, but before I go there, I think that Shalane, I'll go to you. Is there anything else that you feel like we need to take care of, or we've got everyone together?
No, I think we're good. Thank you
for
being able to meet today.
Great. Yeah, thank you to everyone who making the time for this meeting and being patient. Given that, I'd be looking for that final motion.
Madam Chair, this is Blaine. I make a motion that we adjourn.
All right, thank you. I don't know if we need a second. Let's just take a second just to be sure.
Second.
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. I don't think we'll need to do roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I'm going to just stick around for a minute or two, but it was great to see everyone, and I look forward to seeing you all in person here in about a month.